We're here today because you're the expert. We really do want to know the latest on tariffs. It's been a very sort of disruptive last 6 months or so, but there's been more changes discussed up in Washington. So what can you tell us about the latest news on tariffs as they affect the U.S.-Mexico border?
Yes, actually, like you mentioned, there is a lot of activity going on with tariffs. April 2nd, the president make announcement for reciprocal tariffs for pretty much all countries, which he then put back at a base rate of 10%. I mean, he had multiple rates for multiple countries, but he went back and put a base rate of 10% that was supposed to be effective until July 9th, which that to the president meant that he was going to be able to negotiate with all the countries fair trade deals for the U.S. Well, as we know, that didn't happen. So now he has extended the 10% reciprocal tariff up to August the 1st, until August the 1st. In the meantime, he's negotiating, he's sending letters to different countries proposing rates. Now, a lot of companies are concerned about that because they think that that's the set rate. In some cases, it might be, but those are letters so that the president can have a leeway in the negotiation process. He has done some negotiation already with Japan and Korea, also with Vietnam and Indonesia. So in those cases, I think the rates are set. He also sent a letter to Mexico proposing a 30% tariff effective August the 1st. That's the one that a lot of companies, especially the IMEX Maquiladora companies, are concerned because even though it's just a letter, but the 30% is scaring everyone. We don't know exactly what's going to happen. We understand that Mexico is negotiating with the Trump administration regarding that letter. So we don't know if that 30% is going to be lower or increased. Also, if it's going to impact USMCA qualifying products. So that also is still in doubt. If it's an increase of 5% to the current IEEPA fentanyl tariffs, or if it's a separate reciprocal tariff from the IEEPA fentanyl immigration tariff of 25%. So there are still a lot of unknowns which create uncertainty and nervousness in the industry. So we'll have to wait and see in the next few days what comes out of that letter and that negotiation with Mexico. So that's something that we have to keep an eye on. The other situation that we have is the tomato agreement. It's gone. So now there's an anti-dumping duty of 17% for tomatoes effective this past Monday. So company importers of tomatoes are not going to pay that 17% on average, which more than likely will create an increase in the tomato prices in the next few days or few weeks. So that's going to impact the consumers. Unfortunately, we don't see, at least for now, any type of resolution to that based on the strategy that the president is having. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff that is going to happen from now until August the 1st. We also have proposals for Section 232 tariffs of 50% for copper products, which a lot of importers are very concerned about because, as you know, a lot of the products, electrical products, motors, wire harnesses contain copper. So the extent of the copper Section 232 tariffs, of 50%, we don't know exactly how is that going to impact. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on.
A lot of uncertainty.
A lot of uncertainty because things change from one day to the other. And we're just getting information one day at a time. We're getting a lot of calls, a lot of meetings with importers because they want to know what's going to happen. And unfortunately, we cannot give them certainty, which is assumptions, and some consultants and analysts are providing their 2 cents worth of comments, but until we see an executive order from the president and a Federal Register notice, we will know exactly what's going to happen.
But and you don't have those answers to give them, and no one has the answers at the moment. But as we're always told, industry likes certainty, and maybe companies are not going to place the orders, and then importers may hesitate about loading up the trucks and coming over because they just don't know what does that uncertainty do to industry as a whole?
Well, it's not good because that has stopped some investments, foreign direct investments in Mexico and some plant expansions. And because obviously everyone was thinking that Mexico was in a perfect position, which we still think it is eventually, compared to China and other Asian countries. So the nearshoring momentum, we thought it was going to get rolling, but with the tariffs put in for Mexico and now the new announcement of 30%, it creates that added level of uncertainty. So yeah, a lot of the investment and expansion projects in Mexico are kind of on hold. And also, obviously, the transfer of the movement of materials, it's kind of has slowed down because of the tariff situation. So that's what we're seeing right now.
Let's go back to the letter that President Trump sent to President Sheinbaum. What does it tell us about the maturity of Mexico, that there wasn't just a knee-jerk reaction to say, oh, we're going to slap a 30% tariff on the goods you send us? Instead, you said earlier that they're trying to negotiate something. So they're not. It's not been too polarizing yet.
Yes, one of the positive things that the Mexican government is doing compared to, for example, Canada, they've been more diplomatic in their approach. So they have sent, Marcelo Ebrard to negotiate, and his team to negotiate with the current administration. So there are some good things that have come out of those negotiations. Hopefully more good things will come out. But the diplomatic approach hopefully will pay off. Canada went through some hurdles. It's still going through some hurdles. For example, the letter issued to Canada was for 35%. For Mexico was 30%. And, then the U.S. wanted to assess additional tariffs to Canada because of the digital tax, and they stopped assessing the digital tax. And so the president, has been using this more from a political negotiation tactic rather than a trade tactic. And looks what's happening to Brazil. They're proposing the 50% tariff for Brazil as effective August the 1st. So it's because everyone reads it, the political situation with the president, the past president from Brazil, that he's going through a political situation down there. So it's hard to read what's going to happen, unfortunately.
And you were saying earlier as well that all the signs were good for Mexico, that with the issues with China and Asia, Mexico just seemed the perfect place for investment because the supply chains so that we're closer. And Mexico being next door to the US, supply chains are going to be easier to manage, and everything looked good. And then the tariffs come along, and you're saying that has impacted investment in Mexico. But I've heard an argument as well that all of this could lead to more investment in the Rio Grande Valley, or a lot of on the US side of the border. Is there a scenario in which that happens? Maybe there's less investment in Mexico, but the potential for investment on this side of the border is actually good.
Yeah, well, from a U.S. standpoint, that's one of the reasons why the president is doing this, and he mentioned it in the campaign and from the get-go with these tariffs, that he wants reshoring or companies to move operations back to the U.S. or open new operations, which he has had a high degree of success. As we've seen in the press, there's a lot of the big corporations worldwide announcing major investments, billions of dollars in investments. So we see that our region is going to reap some of the benefits of that. Texas is a very business-friendly state, and the promotion that several entities in the region and the state as a whole are doing, we're going to see some industry. I know for a fact that there are some companies looking into our region. Obviously, we have our challenges, which we have discussed: infrastructure, water, electricity, train resources, personnel. But I think we can work with that and eventually bring some of the big companies to our region. So we still, it's this is going to be positive for the valley. We do rely on the maquiladora industry, but we have to look also on the U.S. side as well. And I think there's a positive note to that.
And let me ask specifically about your customers. You're the broker, and there's so many import companies that you deal with. Can you give us the sense as to whether it's certain industries that are going to be impacted more than others with your customer base? Like, for example, the tomato issue. Do you help broker the tomato imports?
We don't really have produce customers. We focus on the maquiladora IMEX industry, but from our customer base, the most impacted will be the automotive, the aluminum industries. We do have customers that import aluminum products. We do have a lot of automotive companies, which are also impacted by Section 232 tariffs as well. So those industry sectors are the ones that are more sensitive to this volatility and uncertainty. The medical industry, I don't think is going to be that hurt by this. But yeah, those other industries, yes.
And those industries that are going to be impacted the most, the people that you have to deal with on a day-to-day basis, are they sort of pulling their hair out? Are they really worried?
Yes, actually, that's a good point. Custom brokerage trade compliance was simple before February of this year. It was USMCA, one tariff code on the transactions, and that was it. Now, with all these different tariff provisions, the complexity of our work has increased, both from the importer-exporter standpoint and from the custom brokerage standpoint. I've never seen so much visibility of trade compliance information escalating up to even the CEO levels. Right now, we're getting inquiries to get reports, meetings, provide data to upper management to monitor what's going on with their imports, because now it's hitting their bottom line, and they have to plan for the financial strategies and obviously how to pass that along to their customers. So trade compliance, custom brokerage, import-export has become a strategic part of the corporate world now for major decisions for companies to make.
So in other words, more work for you. That means you need to hire more staff to keep on top of it.
Yeah, we have actually, in my case, we have actually added 3 people the last couple of months. That puts a lot of pressure on us because we had a lot of electronic processes, EDI processes. Unfortunately, because of all the tariff changes, we now have to rely more on manual processes because the EDI processes were not ready to react to the changes, because, like I mentioned, before one line item per one tariff code per line item, now we have to put all the different provisions, and it can be up to 5-6 line items. And the databases or the software that Mexican exporters and importers or U.S. importers were using have not been updated to take those new tariff provisions. So we now have to rely back on manual data entry, which we have to add additional resources. And also there's some delays in the processing of import transactions, which puts a lot of pressure on everyone. Obviously, we have tried to pass some of those costs to, like everyone else, to our customers. There's resistance, but most of them have been very understanding and they see that, we need to get compensated for those extra resources and extra time that we have to put into the data entry of those transactions.
So a byproduct of all this is software developers with more demand than ever in your industry.
Yes,
they're having to change all the programs.
Exactly. We have an outside software to do import transactions. They have done a lot of upgrades and changes, but they don't do it for free. They help us out to filter and put the right sequences, all the information, but we have to pass that cost along to our customers. Yeah, I mean, it's been a challenge, but we're getting there. We're all in the same boat. It's like I tell, we have tariff fatigue, everyone, but we have to just move along and just be patient.
But no one knows when it's all going to settle down again.
At least for the next 3.5 years, we'll have to deal with this tariffs situation.
So even though August the 1st, that may or may not, that increase may or may not be coming to effect, you don't think after that things will just calm down and everyone will know where they stand on tariffs? But you're thinking, no, that there could be volatility for a number of years.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people thought that he was doing this because of the first 100 days to prove himself, to prove the administration that they had some power. But now it's going beyond the 100 days. And honestly, we have seen, we kind of understood what he was trying to do, what the administration was trying to do to a certain degree. But now it's getting somewhat out of hand. And we don't know exactly what the strategy is. Yes, they're talking about all this additional duty revenues that the government is getting, which, as you know, the importers are paying for that. So it's a revenue source for the government. But at the end of the day, the importer is paying for that. So maybe, and I don't want to get political, but maybe they're going to see next year with the midterm elections, if they start losing, if the Republicans start losing some of the seats, both in the House and the Senate, even some of the governorships, because the immigration issue has, and I don't want to talk in detail about that, but that has also have an impact. Maybe if they see that, they might tone down things a little bit or to some degree. But again, it's very uncertain. It's an unknown.
Yeah, so it's hard to plan in any industry when the uncertainty is there. But your sort of pessimistic view is that uncertainty could be there for another 3.5 years.
Yes, and that's why, our strategy here as a custom broker, as a consultant, has been, well, we just have to decipher things and adjust to the best of our abilities and help our customers adjust and have the visibility that they need. We wish we could give them more concrete and more certain information, but unfortunately we can't. And we just have to monitor and help them out as much as we can with reports, with advice, because that's the other thing. We get this tweets or X publications by the president, and then we get the executive orders, and then we get the Federal Register notices. They're somewhat confusing. They're not written very well. They're very unclear on what they want to do. So even if they make it official, trying to interpret what they're saying, it's difficult. And then they pass that along to U.S. Customs and Border Protection for them to implement. And they also have issues interpreting. I've talked to customs officials and they say, okay, we're in the same boat. We're trying to understand what they're trying to do. Before, U.S. Customs was involved in those decisions. Now they come directly from the executive branch and they just give orders to U.S. Customs. And they have to implement them within a couple of days. Before, they were given 60, 90 days to implement. Now it's from the one day to the other. So they have to update the software. They have to give us guidance. We have to update our software. We have to understand. And there's differences of opinion on how to interpret this. And then they even make an update and they come back and make another update because they misinterpret something. So Customs is in the same boat. that we are in, and I applaud them for all the work and effort, but because it is complex.
It must be the case, though, that all of the custom brokers up and down the border, you're not having to deal with this on your own. Everyone's in the same boat, like you said. So is there sort of a national association that you can call or email and say, give us your best interpretation? Because such an association would be in Washington. They would have connections with the government, with the administration, and you must be getting some really good advice from the people in the industry.
Yes, we actually have a very strong national association, the NCBFAA, National Custom Broker and Freight Forwarder Association of America. They're in Washington. They have offices in Washington, and they lobby a lot. They listen to us. Actually, I'll be in Washington representing the Valley with a couple of other brokers of the Government Affairs Conference in Washington early September 7th, 8th. And we're going to meet with our senators and our representatives and some of the government officials to bring our concerns. But we have a legal counsel over there. We have that are pushing for our interest, for the freight forwarders and custom brokers' interests. But it's tough. It's tough to deal with the current administration on those matters. But yeah, we try to have a voice.
If that conference was next week, and you got the chance to talk to our representatives, House members, Senate members, what would your message be to them today? I mean, it may change by the time you get up there.
Well, under the current scenario, obviously, and it's probably going to be a constant even for September. It's the economic impact in our region. I mean, obviously, we provide jobs, we provide investment in warehousing and in forklifts, and then obviously hiring people. We pay taxes. So obviously, if our business goes down, the economy will be impacted. So they have to look for the best interests of our region. And even though some agree 100% and go 100% with the president, well, the impact to us, it's has been somewhat negative in a lot of instances. So, try to help us out. And there's always something in between that we can negotiate something in the middle and just help us out. That's all we can tell.
I know that the bridge crossings are down in terms of passenger vehicles, and that could be for other reasons, but also the trucks as well. So there is obviously less economic activity related to international trade. That's been felt already.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, you mentioned, from a regular border crossing standpoint, the vehicles are down. Obviously, there's the immigration issues. Trucks are down because trade has slowed down because of the uncertainty, which obviously, like I mentioned, creates less bridge tolls, less sales tax revenues, less usage of diesel purchases, restaurants. It's a trickle down. It's a domino effect. Because the industry is the direct and indirect economic impact is pretty substantial. So if that comes down, everything will be coming down from a revenue standpoint.
I said before we started, I said I would like you to, although you're in the industry and you know what's going on in the industry, and you said earlier how more revenue for the government if they levy taxes at a higher level. That's the government's getting more money. Importers are paying it. They're having to pay those levies. But it's always been said that those price increases, those tariffs, they're passed on to the consumer. Mm-hmm. So tell us what you think the overall impact is for consumers who may not work in the trade, they may not follow it that closely, but they're going to feel it in their pocketbook. They're going to feel it when they go to the grocery stores or the apparel stores.
Yeah, the administration position is that the exporters or producing countries are paying these tariffs. Not necessarily. I call it economics 101, obviously. They might share some of it. They say, well, we'll absorb some of it.
Efficient.
The importers may absorb some of it. But at the end of the day, somehow the consumer is going to be impacted, whether 100% is going to be passed to the consumer or at least partial. So that there's no question about that. The end consumer is going to be impacted by increase in pricing. We just saw the latest inflation index, and it ticked up higher than 2.7, higher than expected. Very minor, but everyone is attributing that to the tariff effect. We still have to wait and see, because that was another comment that the administration was making. You see, we've been at it for a few months, and we haven't seen any major increase in pricing. So the inflation effect of the tariffs is not there. Well, I think we started to see some of it, especially with the tomatoes and the automobiles. There are certain industries that are going to be impacted more than others as far as price increases. But yeah, I mean, there's going to be an impact whether they admit it or not. So,
yeah. Well, those are probably all the questions I had, Jorge. If I left anything out, is there anything extra, anything else you would like to say about all of this? And
yes,
this, because you were saying, well, maybe the impact of the midterm elections could have that could influence things. I was reading how in the opinion polls, most people are not happy with these tariff increases, no matter which political parties, which side you're on. Tariffs just are not popular.
Yes, I mean, they're not, because they are going to increase the pricing. They have inflationary effects. It's not good policy from a trade policy standpoint. I'm not saying that tariffs are negative, but you have to apply with justification. Yes, in the case of China and some other countries, yes, but certain industries, certain products, certain countries, and not as high, obviously, but yeah, there are some trade imbalances that the U.S. has been taking advantage of. There's no question about that, in particular with China. But to take this approach, very aggressive approach that the current administration is taking, and with the uncertainty and the complexity that they created with the aluminum steel tariffs, with the automobiles tariffs, with the reciprocal tariffs, with the fentanyl tariffs, with this tariff and all kinds of tariffs that we're getting, it's very confusing, and it's creating the trade community to make errors, overpay or underpay tariffs, which creates a compliance issue. So I mean, the approach, in my personal opinion, is not the right approach. And then we're seeing that they're using this more from a political standpoint rather than from a trade standpoint, which makes you think, well, is it right to use those tactics as for diplomatic, political reasons? I don't think so, but that's the way they see it. So we'll just have to wait and see. Like you mentioned, everything, elections have an effect, and we'll see what effect they'll have in the near future. So,
yeah. So again, my last question always is there anything else you want to add? Have I missed anything out? Any other thoughts before we wrap it up?
Well, it's great that you are giving me the opportunity to talk about these things, because what we need is to, talk about these issues up front and provide as much information as we can under the current situation of uncertainty. At least we'll provide information, and the public will be informed, and interested parties will take this information and hopefully help them at least to make some short-term decisions or think about their strategies. We hope that we will keep informing the interested public about this, and we'll use platforms like yours and others. But the dissemination of information about these topics it's critical. So we appreciate it.
Anytime, Jorge. Next time there's another development, or a significant development, you feel you need to come back on camera and give us that update, we really would appreciate it.
Yeah, well, I think after August the 1st, we'll have, we hope, more definite information regarding how tariffs are going to play out, because from now until August the 1st, there's a lot of unknowns. So we're probably going to have to talk again after August.
We look forward to that, and we wish that the news was happier, but we really appreciate that. We learn so much whenever we connect with you, Jorge. We have done over the years, it's never been this volatile before, but thank you so much. We really do learn so much about the trade.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Steve.